So today I decided I'm going to try to run a compression test on this engine, and I'm also going to try to find out whether I've got 4-bolt mains or 2-bolt mains. So I decided, since I don't really have a good car battery here to hook up to this, the only thing I have is a lawnmower battery, I decided that I'm going to try and take everything that would put a load on this cranking off of it, so that maybe the lawnmower battery will be enough to just spin it. So I'm going to take out the spark plugs, I'm going to take off the power steering pump, going to take off the harmonic damper, just basically anything that I can that puts a load on the engine when it's trying to crank. So the first thing I started was the power steering pump, and I decided that I would take off just the pump itself. And first thing I did was try to take off the two hoses, or at least the one, just to make it easier to handle. And as I was turning that with my 5/8 inch wrench, line wrench, this hose bumped up against that hose, and it actually bent the nipple right here that is for the return. And since that bent so easily, I guess I'm going to put a new power steering pump on here too. So I guess I'll be happy about that, because in the long run, the more things that are new and unlikely to give me a problem, the better off I'm going to be. So I don't need to take the bracket off of the power steering pump. There are three bolts that hold the bracket on. Only 2 hold the pump to the bracket. So for now, I'm just going to take off the 2 that hold the pump to the bracket, and I'm going to try to do this with power tools to make it quicker. You need a 1/2 inch wrench to hold the bolt on the other side. Oops, and I started to do what I wasn't going to do. I decided that I was going to take the bottom bolt out first, because once it gets loose and it's flopping around, it's going to be easier to be working on the bolt that is the easier one to get to. And there's interestingly enough, it would appear that the bottom bolt is 9/16 on both ends. The top one is a 1/2. At least that's the wrench I had on it, and it worked. Got to go get a different wrench. Okay, I'm back with a 9/16 inch wrench to hold it. And I'm going to take that bottom bolt out first. might be interesting. It looks like there might be a problem getting that bolt out without removing the pulley. I know I can't take the top one out without removing the pulley, but I don't know if I can get that bottom one out. That is going to make it more difficult. Okay, what I can do with that at least is I can move the pump, and hopefully that will allow me to get the belt off. So now all three of those belts are off. The power steering pump is still attached. And there's no way that comes out without the pulley coming off of that. I do have a puller, but for what I want to accomplish today, it's not really necessary. So I've taken the load off of the engine for cranking it. That's what I was setting out to do initially. Find my other nut here to attach at least temporarily so they don't get lost. Of course, that doesn't want to come out. Doesn't want to come out, and it's a deep socket, so it gets pushed in if I try to put it on there. So I found another bolt that actually fits it, and I was able to take it out. The reason I don't want to fool around with that, if I don't have to today, is I need to pick up some leaves in the yard. I'm waiting for it to dry out a little bit, so I'm doing this in the meantime. So the balancer is another piece of dead weight that I'll be trying to turn in doing that. There's a 5/8 center. And then there's 3 9/16 bolts holding the pulleys on. And I don't know if that's 1 or 2 pulleys or what at this point. all the bolts are out. Let's see how easy these pulleys come off. That was easy. Appears to be made as one piece. Now we have to get the damper off. I don't know how well this thing is on. It looks like this might have been on before, or off before, and not put on all the way. I don't know that for sure, but I've got to find the tip that goes up against the crankshaft, and then there's bolts that will hold this on. And that will pull it off. So I've got the first part of that bolt. I just lost a washer. I've got the first part of that puller on. The main shaft goes into the center of the crankshaft, and then these other screws go into the bolt holes where the there's the washer. They go into the bolt holes where the pulleys were held on. So the idea is to get those in, and that's not a good washer for this bolt anyways. Gotta go find one. The next step to getting all the, to make this spin freely for the compression test, is to take out all of the spark plugs. It's in there pretty good. Probably hasn't been out in 20 years. Boy, the old man on the wrench just isn't strong enough. Wasn't really hard at all once I put that extender on it. See how the second one goes. I'm not going to video all these because they're all the same. Unless I come up with something unique. In the meantime, I'll just shut off the camera and save your time. So there's all the spark plugs. Number 1 on the left over here. Number 8 on the right. They're all pretty carboned up. Like it's running rich, but no evidence of any oil residue on any of them. So leads me to believe that there was nothing wrong with at least the rings, or even not too much wrong with the valve seals, because there's no moisture on any of those. So next step is try and run a compression test. So I made a little jumper wire between that small terminal and the big terminal that's normally input to the solenoid, and I connected the jumper cable to that top terminal, and I'm going to let the solenoid do its job and actually cause the engine to crank, hopefully. Hopefully this has enough juice to do it. Trying to line this up where I think I can put the compression gauge where you'll be able to see it. And then I'll connect it to the ground. So there we have it. Well, I guess that little battery isn't going to cut it. I'm going to have to move this all and get it to where I can get to the Jeep and run it off of the Jeep battery. So I have this hooked up now to the Jeep battery, which has 600 pole cranking amps versus 230 in the, it's actually a lawnmower, riding mower battery. Oh, that's not going to crank. Wonder what the problem is there. So there is an obstruction. I left the torque converter bolts in, and I didn't check those. I only checked where I mounted the engine to the stand. So I've got to get a pry bar and pry that engine back just a little bit to get that one out, and then take the other two out, and we'll be able to get this thing to crank, I believe. I'm going to take my trusty pry bar, hook it into a tooth on the flywheel, and rotate it back till I can get those bolts off. There's one down here as well. So that should be enough if I can get my hands in there to take those out. Like I'm going to need a wrench to get up behind there and hold that bolt. Well, theoretically, that solves the cranking problem. We'll see. Okay, so you notice that that goes up in steps. So you want to just keep cranking it till it stops going up. So in this case, it looks like we have 160 pounds in cylinder 1. So now we're on cylinder 2. Chevys are numbered on the driver's side. Front is 1, then 3, then 5, then 7. Passenger side, or right side, is 2, 4, 6, 8. So we're going to do number 2 now. That is not good at all. Either a valve's hung up or there's very little compression in that cylinder because it is not holding any pressure. So that tells me right there that I probably am going to need to do some work on that cylinder, therefore all cylinders. I'm going to take off the valve cover and see if I can see anything going on with that valve. Now this car hadn't really been driven for quite some time because it had a leaky radiator, so it may have seized up just from not being used. And dropped a little washer from the valve cover bolt. I have to find it. I found two there, so maybe I don't need to find it. There's two on that as well. Okay, I'm going to try this again. I'm going to watch the valves, but the other thing that I may have done, I don't know how I was holding this. Maybe I was holding the release valve while it was cranking. And I take great pride in showing you the good and the bad and the ugly, so I'm not upset about this. Let's make sure I'm not holding that valve in. Okay. There's a mistake you can avoid. Don't hold the valve in. And that looks to be about 167. I'm going to do the rest of them. I'm not going to show you the cranking process unless there's something to learn, but I will show you the results from each cylinder. Number 3 looks to be about, well, it was about 147 when I started taking it off. So it's dropped now a little bit to about 144. Number 4 is about 150. 150 on number 4. Number 5, about 148. Number 5 is about 148. Number 6 is only around 140. It's 140 on number 6. There's number 7. It's about 166. Or at least it was when I started unscrewing it from the block. It's probably losing a little bit in the unscrewing process. And it looks about 164 on number 8. Now, I'm not really concerned, because I was thinking I should, I'm trying to build a performance engine here. And I'm going to get new heads, so that would, if there's any leakage around the valves, that would cure that. And if it's rings, the way you determine that, whether it's rings or valves, is you squirt a little oil into the cylinder and rerun the test. And when you rerun the test, if it goes up, compression goes up, then that means the oil sealed around the rings and you need to re-ring to fix your compression. If not, then it's valves, and you need a valve job. So it's as simple as that. I can't remember which one of these was kind of low. I'm going to go with number 4. I'm going to squirt some oil in number 4 and rerun the test on number 4 just for grins, and then I can compare that to what I got before. Okay, I don't know what I missed recording, but I tested number 3 with oil. It ended up around 165. I don't know if that's one of the ones that was low. I'm going to do number 6 again. But the only reason I'm doing number 6 is I'm curious as to whether I could have run these tests off of that tractor battery, or I should say riding lawnmower battery. So I'm going to do this last test with that, just for grins. I don't know. I tested number 4 and it was around 150. So I don't know if I was recording that or not. So I'm just stating that for the record. But for now, my position is I'm going to do a full rebuild. Kind of was leaning that way without any knowledge about the condition of the engine anyway. So, at least now I have some confirmation that that's the right way to go. Even if I didn't do the compression tests, you know, all with the oil in each cylinder to find out whether it was heads or whether it was the rings. So here we go, trying to run it off of the tractor lawnmower battery. And no, we can't run it off of the tractor battery. Not enough juice. So it was a good thing I brought the Jeep down. I was able to get the test run. For as far as this crank, it only got up to 50 pounds, so it's not enough to tell me anything. But we are done with the compression test, and I think by the time I clean things up around here, move the engine back over to the other side of the shop, and it's probably going to be time for me to start picking up leaves. I was hoping to take off the oil pan to see whether this block is a 4-bolt main or a 2-bolt main, but I guess I'll wait till tomorrow. So I think that's going to be it for today, unless I get everything straightened out and it moves back and I find out I have enough time.